Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the updates 1.81 third dev server, and we're having a look at another helicopter. This is the Mi-24A, and you'll find it as the second helicopter that you can unlock out of the tree. It's at 9.3, and it's the middling helicopter, I suppose I'd call it, because you have the early ones, such as the Mi-4AV, which is different to the rest, and then you got a bunch of Hinds, and this is the first of the Hinds, and these being 9.7 and 10.0, I feel like this is kind of the middle one. Now, what is the difference between the Mi-24A and the other Mi-24s that we see? The main difference is its armament, and that's basically what you see from all of these helicopters. So, if we have a look at the armor's a little bit slapdash, which is good. Shows that they've been modelling in different parts of it. You've got it around the engine, you've got it around certain fuel tanks at the back here, or is it certain fuel tanks? Or it's around the fuel tanks and also the transmission system. You also have some around the pilot, so this is definitely a little bit more armoured compared to some of its compatriots. The issue is, how much is that armour actually going to make a difference? I mean, this part here, the bulletproof glass, which is in front of the gunner, yes, it's going to make a bit of difference. But the rest of it, 4mm, even most HE shells are able to pen more than 4mm. The crew, you have a two-man crew. You have the pilot sat on the left here, and the gunner sat in the centre. You also have two engines, these Klimov TV3 117V turbo shafts, 2,100 horsepower each, a lot of power behind them, especially when they're fully upgraded. So, let's have a look at the primary and secondary armaments of this thing. The turret that you find on the Mi-24A is a 12.7mm A27M, and once again, the same thing applies here as it does for the Mi-4AV. I like to take universal because it has the most penetration, and also it's able to do both things, to be quite honest. All of the flight performance and survivability is exactly the same as the other machines, so the weaponry is where it becomes a little bit different. You can obviously upgrade your offensive 12mm. What I would actually say is get the compressor, then get the ATGM, then you can get whatever hell you want, because I'm putting a lot of stock in this ATGM, being the only real reason to use this in ground forces. The FAB 250 is another thing you can install as well. So it's nice. I do like the fact that these helicopters for the Soviets, you can actually put bombs on. I think that's a really cool and nifty thing. I don't really see a lot of use in them, but I do like the fact that they exist. Now, the first armament that this machine gets is 128 S5K rockets, 3,200 silver lions. It's going to set you back quite a lot to be able to mount these things. And the general feel that I'm getting from a lot of these armaments is that they are quite pricey for what you actually get out of them. So the S5Ks are obviously the AP ones, not a lot of explosive mass, 150mm of penetration, isn't too bad, especially against lightly armoured stuff. Then when you graduate from the rockets to the missiles, you have phalangers. So this machine has phalangers, 650mm of pen, 3.6 kilos explosive mass, 4.32 TNT equivalent, so a lot of damage and a decent enough amount of pen. The majority of vehicles that you face won't, be able to bounce this. There's only a few parts, such as like the M1 Abrams turrets, which should even put up any resistance against, ATGMs like this. Then you have the FAB 250s, if you want to bomb bases, or if you want to play the game modes for helicopters, which I'll show you if I have time to. And then you get, as usual, the mixture of everything. So you can take 4 phalangers and 128 S5Ks, 4 phalangers, 4 250 kilo bombs, 4 phalangers, 2 500 kilo bombs, welded, and 4 phalangers, 64 rockets, and 2 250s. So this is one of those machines where you can take a little bit of everything if you're not exactly sure what you want to take. I would personally say that the rockets and the ATGMs is the way to go. So taking 4 of the phalangers and the rockets. So this one, the 128 S5Ks, and then the 4 phalangers. That's really going to be the option that I feel is the best. If you want to be really adventurous, you take the 500s and see what happens. I think it would at least be interesting to do that. I personally think, though, you're not going to get close enough to be able to use them. At least with the rockets, you can fire from at least a kilometer away, or sorry, more than a kilometer away, so there's a chance. But overall, the way I see this happening is the 80 gems are going to be useful, and the rockets are going to be slightly useful, and then everything else you're not going to be able to get close enough. So when it comes to the 12.7mm turret, when it comes to the external guns or bombs, you're not going to be in a place where they're going to be that useful unless you're trying to take out stuff like planes with the guns. Anyway, there's no extra camouflage on this, which makes me sad, but it is how it is. Can't always get what you want. I think for me, now that in this update we've been getting a lot of really interesting skins, mainly for higher tier stuff, I hope we see the same for helicopters. So as you can see, this is one of the helicopters which actually has retractable gears, which is really nice to see. It's something that we don't see a lot. And then if we just show you the openings, you can see this. It has the central parts, and then it has the back parts. Something that, the front parts where the cockpits are. Something that I did talk about in a previous video that we tested was we went on the American map and decided that we wanted to try and test to see if you could put a tank in that Mi-4. It seems like there's invisible barriers and they haven't modeled the inside, so therefore it can't happen. Another thing we tried on the second dev server when we were looking around the American one is you can see how there's a hole in this helicopter. Well, we decided to try and shoot through it with a tank, and it didn't work. What happened is it hit the center of the hole and the helicopter blew up. So I feel like that isn't modeled as an empty space, it's actually just modeled as part of the helicopter, and what happens is it gets hit, and then, you fall to the ground. Anyway, let's close up. Let's have a look at the cockpit. So this is the cockpit view. You don't actually get a gunner view in this helicopter, which is kind of annoying. But you can see the gunner in front of you. This is obviously where the pilot sits. And he has all of the bells and whistles around him. Let's open up. There's the place where the gunner can sit in the front. Obviously he's got his new swanky helmet. Then we have this area here with the door for the pilots, and then of course the doors on the side. So of course this is the first iteration of the Soviet machines which has a distant marker on it. Something that I mentioned in the Mi-4 video is the fact that there was no distance marker for this, and there was also no extra, bells and whistles. But for this, you have the distance marker, which is useful. And so from here on, you pretty much have the most updated piece of, being able to guide in the 80 gem. The 80 gems are fired at quite a wide angle on this machine. I feel like they're fired at a much more extreme angle than it should be. But then again, if the center is supposed to line up with where it hits, then, the wide angle is going to be there anyway. So you can see the wide angle here is quite severe, but it's not the end of the world. Also, if you want to mouse aim in on something which is, 3k away, you can do it. It's just not the easiest, I think is the best way of putting it. We got close. And then it's much easier just to do it from this view, because you can zoom in, it'll tell you the distance, you can just guide it in, it's stable. The camera doesn't move with the helicopter. There's only extreme circumstances where it will, so you can just guide it in and shoot under instead of actually hitting it. Now, something that I am kind of worried about with these helicopters is the speed that they can get to is not something that I've been that impressed with, but then again it is a helicopter, so this thing can hit, we're at 400 now, so a lot faster than before. Reduce speed, and we can just plow some of those in. So we got to 430, something like that, and was able to stay together. I'd say that's an improvement over the first dev server. And also, something is, this thing is way more maneuverable than the first Soviet machine, which is really nice to see. Let's try and line this up. See, why... The thing that I don't get is... Before, when I was lining it up with the bottom of this eye, it was working. And now, it's not working. So I don't really understand exactly how the aimer works for the rockets. Overall, though, this Mi-24 is the first Hind that you pretty much get. It's a fun vehicle. It's not something that is going to really blow you away, especially with the amount of weaponry it's got on. But what it has is it has a lot of training to it. You know, the fact that you can use bombs, the fact that you can use missiles, the fact you have a cannon, the fact that you have rockets, you have a little bit of everything. So for the average new person, then it's going to be really useful. It's going to be a plane that they can use and learn all of the mechanics that helicopters will have to them. And it's a forgiving aircraft. One of the things that I found with the Hinds, sorry, not with the Hinds, with the Hueys and the Cobras, is that they are not really forgiving when it comes to simulator and also whipping the aircraft around, you know. They are kind of mean in that way. But when I use my Hind, that you see here, it's incredibly forgiving in how you fly it. And what this basically means is it's much harder to crash, it's much easier to keep stable, and because of that, I think I would recommend the Soviet helicopters for new players who want to try and learn, you know, learn how all of this stuff works. Once again, I killed one. Once again, the ATGMs are not one-shotting targets when it comes to the ground. And that's okay. Oh, we're gonna pull up. Yeah, we are, baby. So, if you want to kill some ground vehicles, it's gonna take you a bit more time to be able to kill them. You know, 1 or 2 or 3 shots. And that should be okay. Overall, if you're comparing this to the UH that we saw before at 9.0, you take this every time. It's not even a discussion. Has more armaments, has defensive armaments as well, is much easier to fly, may not look as cool, but it does the job a hell of a lot better. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.